You might think she's forgotten you because she's not calling. Yet silence rarely means erasure. It often signals reflection. When a woman truly forgets, she fills the gap quickly. New people, new stories, a life so crowded there's no space left for you. But when she goes quiet without replacing you, it isn't absence. It's the weight of memory pressing in. Night has a way of stripping away the noise. That's when old conversations replay, when unfinished moments resurface, when doubt begins to whisper, "Was letting him go the right choice?" This is where most men fail. They panic, they chase, they interrupt the very silence that's working in their favor. Don't fall into that trap. Instead, let distance reveal its power. And if this truth resonates, tap like and subscribe to Stoic Station, your home for strength, stillness, and self-mastery. Start this journey now. In the comments, anchor yourself with one choice. Drop a 1 if silence once broke you, or a 2 if you've learned to master it. I read them all, because what comes next will test you harder than impatience ever did, and the first lesson is simple. Let's dive in. 1. Distance sparks reflection. Silence is not the end. It is the beginning of thought. The absence of her call doesn't mean you've been erased. What it often means is that space has begun to do its work. Yet most men can't see this. They panic. They stare at their phone, waiting for it to light up, convinced that her silence is proof they no longer matter. That panic is a trap because it makes them move when they should stay still. Think about what really happens late at night. When the noise of the day fades and the scroll finally stops, her mind doesn't go blank. It replays the smiles, the pauses, the unfinished stories between you. They resurface like scenes from a film she didn't realize she'd stored away. This is the moment where the silence begins to work in your favor, but most men ruin it. They rush in, they text, they call, they try to fix what isn't even broken, and by doing so, they interrupt the very process that was drawing her back into thought. By chasing, they erase the value of absence. By intruding, they destroy the space where reflection grows. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason today." Your role is not to police her mind. Your role is to master your own. Imagine dropping a stone into still water. The ripples move outward on their own. You don't need to keep splashing the pond. The same is true here. The last meaningful interaction you had was the stone. Her thoughts are the ripples. Let them spread. And here's the truth that should steady you. People don't lose sleep over nothing. They don't lie awake at 2 a.m. replaying someone who meant nothing to them. If she's awake in the dark, eyes fixed on the ceiling, revisiting your presence, that's not emptiness. It's emotional processing. Give her that space. Let her sit with her own questions. Maybe she's wondering if she misjudged you. Maybe she's realizing she took your presence for granted. Or maybe she's starting to notice something powerful. You're not chasing, you're evolving. This is your mission now, not to wait by the phone, but to build a life that makes you proud, whether she calls or not. Sharpen your mind, strengthen your purpose. When you stop worrying about whether she'll reach out, something ironic tends to happen. That's often the exact moment she does. 2. The midnight mind loop. She doesn't think of you the most in the daylight hours when her phone is buzzing, when friends are laughing beside her, or when her calendar is full. The real weight of memory doesn't strike under the sun. It arrives when darkness falls, when her room is quiet, and when her mind has no choice but to face itself. That's when you resurface. That's when the loop begins. Many men don't realize this and rush to the wrong conclusion. They believe silence means she's forgotten them, that the lack of calls or messages is evidence of indifference. But silence isn't erasure. It's amplification. It's not proof you've disappeared from her mind, but proof that reflection is taking place in the background. At night, when no one's watching and the mask she wears for the world finally slips, her mind replays the things you left behind, the way you looked at her without words, the tone in your voice during the last conversation, the unfinished tension between what was said and what was left unsaid. These fragments repeat in her head like a song she didn't mean to play but can't turn off. Here is where most men collapse. They can't handle the silence. They sit in the stillness and it burns like fire, so they break. They send that late-night text. They press the call button. They try to pull her attention back by force. But in doing so, they sabotage the very process that was working for them. What was once natural reflection turns into annoyance. What was once quiet curiosity hardens into resistance. By forcing her to face you too soon, you reset the cycle. You make yourself predictable, and predictable never stirs the soul. A Stoic man knows better. He understands that seeds grow in hidden soil. You don't dig them up every morning to check if they're sprouting. You water with patience. You trust time. You allow nature to take its course. It's the same here. You let her thoughts work in silence. You let the night carry you back into her mind without lifting a finger. Pride may hold her hand from calling. Ego may whisper to her, "Don't reach out first." But quiet does something pride can't prevent. It magnifies presence. It makes you larger in her imagination, not smaller. That's why the discipline of patience is so powerful. Your job isn't to interfere with her midnight loop. It isn't to try and control the rhythm of her reflections. Your role is to live, to keep your life moving, to invest in yourself, to show through action that you are not waiting at the mercy of another person's phone call. When you do that, you not only keep your peace, you become part of her private story, a recurring thought she cannot easily silence. So the next time you're tempted to break the quiet, remember this: the midnight loop is not your enemy, it's your ally. Don't interrupt it. Let her carry those thoughts alone. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't break, you live. And whether she admits it or not, you're already in her thoughts every single night. That's the hidden power of silence, and it only works if you let it. 3. Ego stays. Silent, heart remembers. Pride blocks her fingers but not her heart. That's the paradox men so often miss. When she doesn't call, when she doesn't reply, it's easy to assume silence equals rejection, but silence is rarely that simple. Silence is the battlefield between her ego and her longing, between the part of her that wants to protect her pride and the part of her that can't help but remember you. Picture her at midnight, scrolling through her phone, trying to distract herself from what she feels. Suddenly, an old playlist starts to play, one you once shared together, or a memory surfaces in her feed, your photo, your words, something that belongs to the two of you. In that moment, her heart stirs. Her fingers hover over your name, ready to press call, ready to send a message. But just before she acts, her ego steps in. That inner voice whispers, "Don't show weakness. Don't let him think you miss him. Make him reach out first." And so she stays silent, not because her heart has forgotten you, but because her pride insists on winning the battle. This is where the test comes for you. Because you feel the pull too. You wonder if you should break the silence first. You imagine what you'd say, how you'd word the message, how you could craft something clever enough or kind enough to pull her back. And most men, when faced with that temptation, crumble. They beg. They send long texts explaining themselves. They argue for attention. They try to force a response. But every time they do, they lose a little more of themselves, and she loses a little more respect. Marcus Aurelius left us a line of timeless wisdom. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one that means you stop overthinking, stop negotiating your worth, and start living as the man you claim to be. Tides ebb and flow. People come close, then drift away. That rhythm is natural. A Stoic man doesn't fight the tide. He stands grounded and lets it move around him. Here's what most men forget. What she remembers isn't your frantic words typed out at 2 a.m. It isn't your arguments for why she should pay attention. What lingers in her heart is your composure under fire, the way you didn't break when uncertainty weighed heavy, the way you held your peace when silence pressed in. That's the image that grows stronger each time pride tells her to stay quiet. So let her ego wrestle in silence. Let her fight her own battle between pride and memory. You don't need to interfere, and you don't need to rescue her from it. Your task is simpler, yet far more difficult. To keep becoming, to stay calm, to grow competent, to walk forward self-led. In the end, what speaks loudest is not what you say, but who you are becoming in the silence. And the irony is this: while her pride may keep her from calling, her heart is still remembering you every single night. 4. The Snowball of Momentum. Every silent day adds weight. Most men think silence kills attraction, that the absence of words means the bond has been broken. But that's a misunderstanding of how emotion actually works. In truth, each night she doesn't call, the snowball rolls downhill, gaining mass with every rotation. What feels like nothing happening on the surface is, in reality, a quiet accumulation taking place beneath. Her thoughts build layer by layer, and the weight of her unspoken feelings grows heavier. This is where men often sabotage themselves. The unknown frightens them. They imagine the silence is the end, so they sprint uphill to stop the snowball. They reach for their phones, firing off a text just to feel relief, just to break the tension of waiting. But that act, the desperate attempt to fill the void, shatters the very momentum that was moving in their favor. Instead of allowing time to intensify her thoughts, they interrupt the process and reset the cycle back to zero. What could have been a storm gathering strength becomes nothing more than scattered snowflakes. The Stoics remind us, what stands in the way becomes the way. Her silence feels like a wall, but it is actually the path, if you let it be. The discipline is in holding still when every part of you wants to run forward. The patience is in trusting that momentum gathers not through your effort, but through your absence. Every day she resists calling. Every night she lies awake wrestling with her own pride. The snowball grows larger. You do not need to push it. You only need to refrain from stopping it. The disciplined man understands this. He doesn't measure value by immediate response. He doesn't panic when silence stretches. He knows that attraction is not always loud or obvious. It's often quiet, building in shadows, pressing heavier with each passing night. So he holds frame. He remains centered. He lets the snowball roll. Because in the end, each silent night grows the weight of her thoughts, and the man who doesn't move, who doesn't break, is the man who wins. And here's the irony that should stay with you. The less you do, the more powerful you become in her mind. Let the silence gather force. Let the momentum build. Don't chase the snowball. Let it crush the doubts for you. 5. Familiarity fades, mystery stays. Too much presence becomes background noise. When you are constantly available, when every morning begins with your text and every evening ends with your check-in, you stop being a spark and start becoming wallpaper. The truth is, constant availability kills curiosity. It doesn't inspire her imagination, it dulls it. What once felt exciting becomes routine, and routines don't stir the heart. They lull it into indifference. This is the trap many men fall into without realizing it. They believe that attention equals security, that consistency in chasing equals love. But what they're really doing is eroding the very mystery that creates attraction. When she knows you'll always be there, when she can predict the exact moment her phone will light up, she doesn't have to think about you anymore. You've become like a television left on in the background, always present, but never really noticed. She doesn't lean in, she tunes you out. Here's where Stoic wisdom cuts through the illusion. Epictetus once said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do." What does this mean for you? It means stop fighting the natural law of scarcity. Stop insisting that constant presence will create closeness. Instead, step back. Let space do what your words cannot. The more you allow silence to enter, the more room you give her mind to wander. And wandering minds create questions. Scarcity has always created value. Think about it. Why do rare sunsets or once-a-year events move us more deeply than something we see every day? Because we know we can't take them for granted. The same principle applies to you. When you stop flooding her with your presence, when you remove yourself from the routine, you shift from background noise to a rare signal. Suddenly, you're no longer the man she expects to hear from. You're the man she wonders about. And those questions matter. At night, when the world is quiet, she doesn't lie awake, asking herself about the men who were predictable. But she will lie awake, asking herself about the man who pulled back, who stopped chasing, who respected his own time enough to step into mystery. Did I lose him? Has he moved on? Did I take his presence for granted? Those questions echo louder than any text you could send. This is the power of restraint, not as a game, not as punishment, but as self-respect. When you step back, you don't vanish, you amplify. Your silence isn't empty, it's full of gravity. Mystery lingers where routine fades, and in that quiet pull, her heart begins to stir again. So hold your line. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let her feel the difference between background noise and rarity, because mystery pulls harder than routine ever could, and that pull may be the very thing that brings her thoughts back to you. 6. Memory outlives messaging. You can ignore a text, but never a memory. That's the truth most men forget. They believe their clever replies, their constant stream of messages, are what keep them alive in her thoughts. But words on a screen fade faster than smoke in the wind. What lingers isn't the text, it's the presence. At 2 a.m., when the noise of the world has died down and the room is dark, she's not replaying your sentences word for word. She's replaying how you made her feel. The look in your eyes when you listened, the calm in your voice when you spoke without trying to impress. The way your presence filled the space without forcing it. Those are the details that memory clings to, and those are the details no message can ever replace. Yet most men, unable to sit with uncertainty, chase reassurance through constant messaging. They believe one more text will spark something, that a perfectly crafted reply will reignite her interest. But what they fail to see is that every attempt to hold on through words only cheapens the memory. What was once something rare and meaningful turns into background noise, stripped of its weight. They trade lasting impact for fleeting comfort. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." And the same applies to the impression you leave on hers. If you lived with presence, if you showed up with genuine attention, if you walked away without begging or breaking, you already planted seeds in her mind. Seeds don't grow when you keep digging them up. They grow in silence, watered by time, nurtured in the quiet hours when she's alone with her thoughts. That's why your absence, carried with dignity, echoes louder than any late-night message. It is not passive, it is powerful. It shows her that your value doesn't depend on her replies, that you are a man who continues to live fully even in silence, and that paradox is what makes you unforgettable. So live well, build your strength, invest in your purpose. Don't break your own silence just to soothe an anxious ego, because memory, when given room to breathe, outlives messaging every time. And when she thinks of you at night, it won't be because of your words, it will be because of your presence. 7. Calm energy speaks louder. Sometimes the loudest message you can send is the one you never say. When you stop chasing, when you no longer flood her phone with texts or demands, you create a space that silence fills. And nature, as the Stoics remind us, hates a vacuum. The moment you step back, her mind begins to fill that silence with questions. Why is he so calm? Did he lose interest? Has he moved on? Is someone else taking his attention? These thoughts don't appear when you are constantly checking in. They only arrive when you stop. Most men cannot bear this stage. They panic when quiet stretches too long. They convince themselves she must not care and that they need to act before it's too late. So they break the silence, sending messages out of fear rather than strength. In doing so, they shatter the calm that was working for them. They prove they cannot sit with stillness, and nothing kills attraction faster than showing that you cannot control yourself. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Right now, it's her imagination doing the work for you. While you remain silent, she imagines what you might be doing, who you might be with, how you seem so unbothered. That mental image has far more weight than anything you could type into a phone. The moment you break the quiet to reassure yourself, you take away her imagination and replace it with predictable noise. This is where discipline matters most. Your calm energy is not weakness, it is active patience. It shows that you are not moved by her silence, that your life continues with purpose and direction regardless of her response. That calmness radiates strength. It plants a deeper seed than any words could, because it demonstrates mastery over yourself. And here's the truth. What is real will return without being forced. What is meant for you does not require panic, begging, or manipulation. It requires presence, clarity, and steadiness. So while she wrestles with her thoughts, let your calm energy speak. Because at the end of the day, silence carried with confidence becomes the loudest message she hears. 8. She's testing herself, not you. Her silence isn't always a punishment, and it's not always about you. Many times when the calls stop and the messages dry up, she isn't trying to hurt you, she's trying to test herself. She's asking a private question only she can answer. Can I live without him? Can I let him go? That's the storm she's in, and it's hers to face. The mistake men make is believing the silence is a verdict. They think she's already moved on, so they panic. They press send. They call late at night. They try to remind her they're still there. But in doing so, they don't ease her doubts. They confirm them. They interrupt her process and rob themselves of the dignity that comes from holding steady. What could have been a moment of her realizing your value turns into proof that you can't handle space. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Don't imagine your whole life is in other people's hands." When you jump in too soon, that's exactly what you're doing, handing over your peace to her silence. Think of a clear lake, still, calm, reflective. The moment you throw stones into it, you stir up the mud and cloud the water. That's what happens when you interfere. Her test isn't about your strength, it's about hers. If you leave the water undisturbed, it clears on its own. Your role is not to disrupt her battle, but to stand firm in your own, to remain grounded while she wrestles with pride, fear, or confusion. Because the truth is simple, When you stop pulling, one of two things will happen. She will either drift away or she will come back on her own terms. But either way, you remain intact. So let her test herself. Don't panic. Don't beg. Don't try to rescue her from her silence. Your calm presence already speaks louder than any reminder you could send. And in the end, that's what makes you unforgettable. 9. Night echoes. Hit harder. During the day, distractions protect her. Work emails, endless scrolling, conversations with friends, all of it creates a shield between her and the ache of your absence. In daylight, she can hide behind noise. But when the night comes, when the phone is set down and the world slows, that shield dissolves. That's when the echoes arrive. This is when you come back, not physically, but in memory. She lies in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her mind no longer numbed by activity. And suddenly, she hears your voice again. She remembers the way you walked beside her. She sees the moment you looked at her with calm certainty, not desperation. These echoes don't ask permission to appear. They invade her quiet, and the silence she once thought she wanted begins to weigh heavy. Men often underestimate the power of this moment. They panic at night too, staring at their own screens, hearts racing, telling themselves she must not care. So they break. They send a midnight text, hoping to spark attention, hoping to feel something other than uncertainty. But what they don't realize is that by doing so, they reset her process. Instead of letting the echo deepen, they cut it short. Instead of letting absence create gravity, they rush to fill it with noise, and noise never lingers. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." That's what happens when you constantly insert yourself into her life. You turn yourself into background static. But when you step back, when you allow silence to stretch, you shift from being predictable to becoming a mystery. And mystery is heavy. It has its own gravity, especially in the dark. Think of the last time you lost something precious. During the day, you distracted yourself. But at night, the weight of that absence pressed harder. It wasn't just about the object. It was about the meaning attached to it. That's how emotional echoes work. Right now, you are that echo in her mind. Not gone, not erased, but felt more strongly with every hour of quiet that passes. This is why discipline matters. The Stoic man doesn't break the silence to soothe himself. He allows the silence to do its work. He trusts that reflection takes time, that memory sharpens in stillness, not in noise. What you cannot say with 1,000 words, absence will say for you if you allow it. So don't rob her of the echo. Don't rush to reset what silence is amplifying. Let the night be your ally. Because when the distractions fade and her pride grows quiet, that's when you return to her most powerfully. Not as a text on her screen, but as a presence in her heart. And that presence is unforgettable. 10. Detach into yourself. Detachment isn't about vanishing from her, it's about reappearing in your own life. Too many men mistake silence as a game, a tactic to punish her, or a strategy to win back control. But the real purpose of detachment is alignment. It's the moment you stop waiting by the phone as if it were a life support machine and remember who you were before overthinking, before panic, before you handed your piece over to someone else's attention. When she doesn't call, it stings. The silence can feel like rejection, but that sting is also an invitation to rebuild. This is where most men lose themselves. Instead of seeing silence as a gift of time, they see it as a void to be filled. They scroll, they send messages, they search for validation outside themselves, and in doing so, they lose the chance to return to the man they were meant to be. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's the call of detachment. While she wonders, you lift. While she replays memories, you create new ones. At the gym, at work, with friends who sharpen you. While she hesitates, you build. Silence becomes the forge where you strengthen your mind, body, and purpose. Think 6 months ahead. Will the man you're becoming thank you for this moment or resent you for wasting it? The choice is yours. Detachment gives you space not to punish her, but to master yourself. To make your presence in your own life so strong that whether she returns or not, you remain unshaken. Because here's the truth. Silence is not always rejection. More often, it is reflection. Hers, yes, but also yours. And when you use that silence to grow, you no longer need her call to feel valuable. You've already answered the only call that matters, the one to yourself. Brothers, if there's one truth I want you to carry from all of this, it's that silence isn't your enemy, it's your proving ground. Each moment she doesn't call is not a verdict against you, but a mirror held up to your own discipline. You've seen how distance sparks reflection, how midnight thoughts return, how pride wrestles with memory. You've seen how momentum builds, how mystery restores value, and how calm energy speaks louder than words ever could. The lesson is simple but not easy. Your job is not to manage her mind, it's to master your own. Every night of silence is a chance to grow sharper, steadier, stronger. 6 months from now, you'll either thank yourself for holding frame or regret breaking it. Choose gratitude in advance. Choose to rise. Because when you detach into yourself, you realize the call you've been waiting for has already been answered by you. If these truths spoke to you, don't just nod in silence. ACT, tap like. So this message reaches more men walking this path. Hit subscribe to Stoic Station, your home for strength, stillness, and self-mastery. And in the comments below, anchor your mindset with just one powerful line. Let silence do the work. Because when you claim that, you stop begging to be chosen and you start choosing yourself.